Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming to the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Schrum, and we are joined by the North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome to you both, and I hope you're getting through this hump day on the week after a holiday.
Yes, and I would like to remind everybody, put down the leftovers. They're done.
Yeah.
It's been too long. Unless you put them in the freezer already, stop. There will be other meals. I swear to God, you can mash potato on another day.
It's kind of like that TikTok, dumb ways to die. So we have a little bit of a new format for this week. Jennifer, you're going to give us what's coming to the cover of this week's journal.
Yes, it is. I know I've gotten a lot of phone calls over the past few months from people checking in. It is flash fiction time again. The journal's annual flash fiction contest and issue on stands. And by the way, this year, everybody is going to be surprised when they see themselves in. So did you win? You'll have to pick up a journal and find out. There are a couple dozen stories in there, I think, and they are all 99 words or less. Did people send me 100-word stories? They did, Tanya.
Did you omit one? Or
yes, unfortunately, if they're not 99 words or fewer, we can't use it. So just in case you're out there testing. But we got a wild gamut of entries from a really broad array of people. I don't actually look at the names until after we choose them as a finalist. So we get everything in the inbox, and then I send out all the, without names, all the stories without their names attached to them, and they're just numbered. And I send them out to our judges. Returning again are Dave Holper, who you may know as Eureka's first poet laureate and professor emeritus from College of the Redwoods. We have Jen McFadden from the Booklegger. She's the owner of Booklegger. And Nancy Short, who used to be her partner co-owner at Booklegger, but is now retired happily and still somehow, for some reason, willing to spend her time reading stuff with us. And normally we have Joanne Bauer, who is a former children's librarian. This year she couldn't make it because she's traveling. Joanne, we missed you, girl, but we'll see you next time around. And we get together after, a week or two of reading with our own final choices. And we sit down usually at a coffee shop and kind of snack and gossip and go through and kind of finalize our choices and discuss what we liked about them. And one of the things that's cool about it is everybody has really different tastes. Sometimes Jen and Nancy agree on a lot of stuff, but we always find at some point someone brings up a story that we didn't maybe pay too much attention to, but they'll talk about it and you start to see the value in something through someone else's eyes. Seeing, two people who like the same story for totally different reasons is always fun. But we come up with a final list, and the final round has everything. It's like the Stefan thing, right? These stories have everything. They have, I think there's a robbery. There is a story with a corn dog in it. The corn dog is the catalyst for the drama in this story. We have a stick up. We have budding romance. We have people hiking. We have people getting tattoos. There are elements that are very humble. There's a story about someone who is, in a really, really dire, dark place and looking out at Humboldt Bay, and that view kind of changes them. There are stories that are, some of them like from birth to death, a person's life, And then some of them are about just a tiny change in someone's perspective. And that's enough to be a completed narrative arc, right? Something changes, someone reveals something about themselves. And it's a really great read. And you can pick it up and put it down 99 words at a time. So please absolutely go pick it up. Our winner this year was Dave Regan. And that is the story about the tattoo. And it is our cover image. The images that are throughout the stories and on the cover are from our own Dave Brown in the production department. He's a wonderful artist. And I'm interested to see what people's reactions are to the stories. So please take your time, read them, and let us know what you liked.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to pick up and read every 99 words to their completion. It was such a wonderful highlight of the creativity of our community.
It really is.
And thank you, Jennifer, for that story. And again, everybody pick up this week's journal and read it cover to cover. And right now we're going to pivot back to Thad for some of the news in our community that's being highlighted in the journal this week. Thad, what do you have for us?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Before we dive into the news, I guess I just wanted to add into the flash fiction that I was taken this year by both by how Humboldt all the stories were, even though I think only a couple were made overt reference to Humboldt or were set, overtly set here, but they just all felt very Humboldt this year. And then I just, want to give some kudos and more kudos to the judges in that I was also struck this year while proofing the stories at how often reading the judges' comments caused me to go back and reread the story and through a different lens and walk away with just a different feeling about it. So it's a great package as always.
Thad, that's a great point. I completely agree.
Yeah. On the news side this week, we've got one uplifting story and one awful story. So start with the awful so we can move past it. There was a police shooting in Eureka on Sunday, as most folks have probably heard. And so we took a look at just kind of the very limited information we know about the incident currently, which is very little. The Eureka Police Department has really released the bare minimum. So we know that a 31-year-old male was shot near the main branch of the Humboldt County Library after a traffic stop. According to EPD, he fled the vehicle during the traffic stop. Then when officers tracked him down, a violent confrontation ensued. Again, according to EPD, he pulled a firearm, a loaded firearm, and was shot by multiple officers. That's really all we know. One thing I really wanted to stress in our reporting is just kind of reinforce that the laws have really changed about the flow of information from police shootings. Used to be, really that we just counted on police agencies to tell us whatever they chose to tell us or not to tell us from these incidents. But in the last 5-6 years, there's been just a kind of a tremendous change in transparency law surrounding them. So first of all, Senate Bill 1421, which passed, I think in 2018 or 2019, now mandates that all of the documents associated with the investigation of these shootings are released to the public at their conclusion. So it'll probably be some time before we get our hands on those, but we really will get everything from, transcripts of officer interviews to witness interviews to the reports and the forensic reports coming. And then I also wanted to note that the incident the shooting was caught on body camera footage from at least one of the officers involved. I want to note that Eureka Police Department in its press release said that footage would be released at the conclusion of the investigation. But that's not actually what the law mandates the Eureka Police Department to do. So we pointed out in our reporting that a new law that went on the books, I think 2 or 3 years ago, actually requires that body camera footage of a critical incident, which this absolutely qualifies as, must be released within 45 days of the incident, absent exigent circumstances, something that would, put a witness in danger or something like that. And so without really, really good reason, the Eureka Police Department has to release that footage within 45 days.
I thought it was also important to note that the standard of use of deadly force has also evolved in California.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Tanya. That's a change, just in the last couple of years. is kind of in the legal minutia of these things, but is really important. So the previous standard was just basically a reasonableness standard, which is, if an officer, given the same set of circumstances, the same set of facts that they knew at the moment they pulled the trigger, given all of that, was it reasonable for them to pull the trigger? And that was actually kind of a much more, conservative standard than a lot of other states had. And so a couple years back, again, the California legislature changed that standard to basically whether the shooting was necessary to protect human life or prevent grave bodily injury of an officer or somebody else involved, which is a much more stringent standard. And it also takes into account, in making that decision or that determination, all of the pretext to the shooting itself. So it used to be kind of like just in that split second the officer pulled the trigger, was this a reasonable decision? And now it takes into account whether officers attempted less than lethal force before shooting, or whether they attempted de-escalation techniques and things like that. So it takes kind of a much fuller picture of an incident.
Thank you, Thad. And for the balance, what is our uplifting story?
Yeah, then we have a great story by Kim Weir, our digital editor, about a new program coming to Pelican Bay State Prison in collaboration with Cal Poly Humboldt, where Pelican Bay is going to become the first California state prison on a maximum security yard that offers a 4-year degree program. So Cal Poly Humboldt is bringing a communications degree program into Pelican Bay. It's going to have all of the same classes and same credits as folks on campus are going to receive or would receive in the same communications program. And it's really an extenuation or continuation of long-standing efforts from College of the Redwoods with their Scholars Inside program, which has been offering various AA programs within Pelican Bay for, I think, going back 10 years or something like that, with tremendous success. So this is a part of the statewide effort from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to really focus on educational programs, which have really proven to decrease recidivism, improve prison cultures cultures within prisons, and then also just make releasees much more successful in life after prison. So these are widely viewed as a win-win, much cheaper than continued incarceration. And it's just, I think it's really cool that Cal Poly Humboldt kind of jumped at the chance to be a part of this. And I will selfishly note that this effort would not be possible without Tony Wallen, who is a former Journal contributor, a wonderful human being, a Cal Poly Humboldt alum, and has spearheaded the Project Rebound program, which is a kind of reentry program at Cal Poly Humboldt, which gets formerly incarcerated people into school there and kind of helps them achieve success there with just incredible results. By and large, folks in that program have higher grade point averages than their counterparts and higher graduation rates. So,
and they are utilizing CR and their information to help make the program run smoother. And what they've learned.
Definitely. I mean, both. Correct? I think it's important to note that they're learning from all of the lessons that CR has learned, kind of laying the foundation for this. But then also the program is designed to dovetail with CR, so that folks who get an AA degree from CR in communications while in Pelican Bay can then continue on to getting a bachelor's from Cal Poly Humboldt.
I think it's wonderful. It's a great idea, and as long as no one is parked in the parking lot, it should all work out.
Indeed. And I'll just say, like on a personal note, I think I've been covering Pelican Bay State Prison and things going on there since I started reporting on the North Coast here in 2004 or 2005, and it's been really remarkable to watch it go from just a an institution that really, housed the most violent people in California in the most inhumane possible confines. And it was the subject of, of hunger strikes and lawsuits for just deplorable conditions there. And to see it having really revamped into what is now being held up as kind of an educational model for other prisons is just really cool.
It's remarkable. It's a great story, and I'm really happy that these things are on the upswing.
Yep.
Okay, well, with that, we are going to go back to our wonderful Jennifer and hear about what's coming to the table this week in the North Coast Journal.
Well, actually, I got a chance to, I will go to a potluck. I will take a chance to go to a potluck, but I got to go to the Trans Power potluck last week. Last week, you may recall, we were talking about the Transgender Day of Remembrance and the whole week-long program of activities around the Trans Week of Resistance. And in response to, all of the legislation and the sort of anti-trans culture that has gained strength over the last few years. And can I just take a side note and say how weird that is for a second? We like treating all of a sudden like transgender people like they're new, when I can remember, like, I think I saw an episode of Archie Bunker as a kid involving someone transgender, and the message was like, oh, Archie, get over it. But still, we're having all of this, anti-trans legislation. And
just to date myself for a second, Jennifer, I was very pleased that I was educated by the show Soap about trans.
Yes.
When I was a child.
We're going to talk about that later.
Yes, absolutely.
But with all of this, it's been a particularly difficult time, and not only for, trans people as a group, LGBTQ people as a group, as a, protesting, legislation concerned group, but as individuals, right? And around the holidays, as we all know, things like loneliness, isolation can get worse. So I attended the potluck and spoke with Sister Gayatri, who is one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who helped organize the event, and talked about why have a Trans Power potluck, why have it the night before Thanksgiving, why are all these things important? And it was really eye-opening. For one thing, and also, I did not recognize her without her sister face, as she puts it. At first, I was like, hello. And she was like, hi. And I was like, do I know you? And I've interviewed her many times, but always in makeup and in sister costume. So anyway, it was really fascinating because she was telling me about how, for her, entering into the sisters really was like finding a family, until her own family could kind of get it together and, catch up and accept. And it took a minute, and it was very isolating. Also, the sisters offered a kind of an elder to younger person mentorship, the kind you have from families, from grandparents. And some of that involves food. Now, Thad remembers from writing about Sister Saturnalia, John Hudson, who passed away in, I think it was 2018, maybe 2018. And he was known among the sisters and among the community at large as somebody who was always cooking, always, sharing his own history with the civil rights movement, with ACT UP in San Francisco, his time in the military, like sharing these histories, right? These personal histories of living as a queer man and feeding people and forming this kind of intimacy and community around food. And likewise, Sister Juana Little, which is such a great name, was kind of that mentor for Sister Gayatri. And, she said to me, anybody can go to his house and have a meal and talk whenever they need it. And, the tremendous value of that, particularly if you are estranged from family, or if you're just coping with all kinds of stress, as we all do. But it's quite a different set of stressors if you are a trans person living right now. At the potluck, there were lots of people, and I talked to them about why they came. And for a lot of them, one of them was like, listen, if there's food, I'm coming. But this one woman, Jenna, was saying that, she feels that struggle around, or they feel that struggle around the holidays, being apart from family and having this kind of community family and meeting people and making friends was a big deal. And, other people really seconded that. And apparently there was a speed friending event earlier in the week run by the sisters, which, listen, making friends outside of work is hard. Staying friends with people you work with, Thad, can be hard, but he forgives me. It's fine. But it really struck a couple of people that the sisters were really trying to not only form community and kind of the community activism bonds that you need in order to make change, but also really creating opportunities for people to make personal bonds and to not feel alone. And, friendships were forming around these tables, and it was really great to see. And it was really, powerful too. One young woman I spoke with was saying, I said, well, what are you doing here tonight? Like, what brought you out? She was like, I am queering myself up before I go home, because she was going to drive home Thanksgiving morning, which I'm like, okay. But driving to like Southern California on Thanksgiving morning to go and come out to her mom. And so she wasn't feeling like her mom wasn't going to be accepting, wasn't going to be loving, but she felt like she needed that boost of being around people who were going to support her and knew what she was going through, and, maybe do all of that while you eat some pie.
I am just so grateful for the sisters for cultivating this community within the community. And especially over the holidays, everything you said is so resonating that I can only imagine everybody feels that isolation when they're not surrounded by family. And for a community that may or may not have backing of their own family, it's time to have a family that they chose that can support them. And that's just wonderful.
Yeah, and I think there was something really nice about just like going into a room full of people, some of whom you may not know, but nobody is going to be, rude to you. Nobody is going to be, anything less than accepting and kind to you, just based on who you are walking in. And that's not a feeling that, a lot of trans and queer people get to feel all the time in a supermarket or at a public event or whatever. There can be a sense of trepidation. And it's really lovely to see people kind of being kind to each other too. There was a lot of vegan food on the table. I think it's possible all of it was vegan. I was kind of going down the line and I was like, there's a lot of chickpeas in here. There's a lot of, and interestingly, not the kind of vegan food where it's like, you think it's a sausage, but it's actually soy kind of a thing. It's like, just like lots of greens, lots of, a lot of stuff from people's CSA shares and things like that. And it was a lovely thing. I was like, so are lots of people here vegan? They're like, no, but I knew there would be people here. And they were saying that if the vibe is to be accepting and to welcome everyone, you have to make an environment where everyone can eat, everyone can share, everyone can easily get into the building. There aren't a bunch of stairs out front, or, everybody can partake in something without worrying that they'll get sick or something like that. Everybody had all their ingredients listed on a card next to the food. And it was just a very simple, like, yeah, of course I would do this. I want to make it easy for anybody to join in. And it was lovely.
That is lovely. And I hope we can take some of that spirit into the new year for the trans, the LGBT, everybody's community, and all of us in our lives. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Thad. And of course, that wraps up our time for this week. So the current edition of the North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick up your copy today. Enjoy reading it cover to cover and some of the creativity from our community. You, of course, can also find it online at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrum, and thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast community.